Howdy y'all, I got the Bulldog on the channel. Here's a part of the business that I understand, but I don't agree with it. We don't do it here, but in the bigger shops, yeah, I get why you guys do that. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and honestly, for some customers, it leaves a horrible taste in their mouth too. Sorry about the traffic, I'm next to a highway. But here's what we have. We've got a Toyota Tacoma. It's just rolled 100,000 miles, which is part of the reason why this is here. He took it to a dealership and they did a full multi-point inspection. And you can see, they did a recall and then they did the free multi-point inspection. The reason it is free is because of all this that they advised to be done. And they got their checklist here. And as you can see, this thing is in excellent shape. It's got all the green check marks, except for two. Brake reservoir. They're saying it needs a brake fluid flush, which, yeah, I can see that. We honestly never do it, unless it looks bad. Yeah, you can put the little refractometer in there and measure the amount of water contamination in your fluid, and it could be bad enough that you need to do something. There's always some other brake surface that needs to be done at some point in its life, which it gets flushed out at that point. So we just don't do brake flushes. We don't push it. I probably need to get the tool to test the contamination in the fluid, but I just don't see having something to look for a problem that I've never had a problem with. I run vehicles for a quarter to a 500,000 miles regularly, and I don't have trouble with brake fluid at all. So maybe I'm lucky, but here's something. Check mark down here for fluid leaks. Let's go look at this truck and see just how bad of a fluid leak it's got. There's a little bit of oil up there, just a dusting where there's dust collecting on something moist. Back here where the engine is, it is bone dry. Up there, it is bone dry. There's no valve cover leak or nothing. Clear up here on top of the engine, it's dry. Over here on this side of the motor, dry. Back up here, dry. So I'll look up here, just doesn't seem to see anything anywhere that could be a fluid leak when they said it required immediate attention. Thing is, they didn't even give him an estimate on fixing it. They don't have any part that they say is leaking. Any mechanic that knows this truck, you probably know where I'm going next. I'm standing on a ladder up here on top of the motor now. You can look around, and there's nothing. There's no wetness anywhere that you can see, except for one place, right there, around the oil filter. And this oil filter was freshly changed. The guy just changed his oil before he took it to the dealership and had it serviced for that recall. And there's oil below the filter. where it always spills when you take the filter off. It's down there collecting on things because that's where it runs. They noted that leak. They noted that leak, but then didn't explain to him what that meant. They just gave him a list of a whole bunch of things to do. They said it needed brakes. Well, he went and got tires on it right afterwards, and they looked at it and they said, you don't need brakes, they're almost brand new. This is not the first time I've heard that. You've got little gauges that you can look at it and measure and all that kind of stuff, and it's always a judgment call, even though you can measure it. I've got it up there looking at it. I don't see anything wrong. I'm going to check the fluids underneath, but the thing is, they just did that. They were supposed to do that anyway. I got to double check them. But I talked to the customer, and I explained that this is kind of a marketing strategy. And it stinks, but it's not really rotten. Rarely do they lie outright. They do, sometimes they do, but rarely is it an outright lie to just get the work. It can be a bit of a judgment call on a lot of things, but you're pushing it whenever you call out some of this stuff. And the service advisor needs to go out there and show, hey, this is where the leak is. Is it something to worry about or not? On that deal, it's written, it requires immediate attention. No, it doesn't. The only immediate attention it requires is to spray it down with something and clean it up. And if it was done whenever the oil was changed, there wouldn't be a problem. So that's, I'm gonna, like I say, I'm gonna check the rest of the truck over. They only looked at the front brakes when they did the tires. So I'll look at the back brakes. I'll check the rear end gear and the front end gear for fluid. There's no leak up here around anything at all. The brake fluid's down a little bit, so maybe that's what they're judging the brake lining to be low. Because there's two ways for the brake fluid to be low: a leak or low linings. So I'll look, but still, I don't expect to find anything. Okay, I got in underneath of it, and they did their whole multi-point inspection, but look at this level check plug. The rust has not cracked around it. There's no shiny spots on the corners. This plug hasn't been out. How did they check the fluid without pulling the plug out of it? This is why I'm double checking things. If their goal is to find things wrong, then you have to check these things rather than just telling them, oh yeah, you need this. This is basically a check over for a 100,000 mile service. Maybe the service calls for you to drop the plug, drain it, change it. It's a possibility. But you did the multi-point inspection right. You checked the level on it right. This is upsetting. I just broke this loose, and now you can see where the rust is all disturbed, and it left a line around it. But let's spin this out. See what we get. Well, it didn't pour out. Well, I can't fit my finger in there. My pinky is the size of a lot of people's thumbs, so yeah, okay. Fluid's right there. So We can put this back in and call it checked. I mean, you can tell that plug has been out now. Let's check the transfer case. That one's full also. And it was the same deal. No evidence that the plug had been out. While you're back here, check the U-joints. They got grease zerks, but doesn't look like anybody's ever touched them. Get the grease gun and give him a couple pumps. Let's check front axle. Front axle with what I assume is a 10mm hex, and it does not look like it's been disturbed either. So we'll check it. Just to show you why I don't think it's been disturbed, there's undisturbed. There's the deal put in there. There's it pulled out. It's knocked all the rust off and scratched up the corners. So that's why I think it hasn't been checked. Yep, it's up just below the line. Sorry that I'm not keeping this centered, but I'm watching what I'm doing and holding the camera. Okay. And that's what it looks like after you have some force against the corners. It shines up the corners really good, knocks all the rust off. This one looks a lot closer to what it did before, but the others you could see had not been touched at all. This one, judging from what I've seen elsewhere, hadn't been touched either. But, you know, we'll give them a benefit of the doubt. No fluid leaks around the transmission either. Now this customer did ask, he says, I've got 100,000 miles on it, so what do I actually need to do? I said, well, these Toyotas, there's two different intervals on the spark plugs on them. Some of them are 120,000, some of them are 100,000. But I would advise spark plugs, and that's about it. Air filters, he put air filters in it. Dale says the coolant's in good shape. I told him there is an issue with coolant where it needs to be exchanged if it builds electrolysis, but that's not nearly as much of an issue as it used to be. Whenever we had iron blocks and brass radiators, you did have some trouble with electrolysis building up in the cooling system because you had two dissimilar metals and a fluid running through them. That is called a battery. And it will build a charge and it'll turn the coolant to acid. And I'm not talking about dissolving everything acid. I'm talking about just enough to make a difference. And it will eat the insides out. And the only way to really fix that is to change out the coolant. But that's very rare, honestly. I've seen it 27 years. I've seen it half a dozen times. Usually you get the coolant exchanged at some point. It needs a flush at some point for other reasons, like sludge in the system. So I'll look this thing over a little bit more. Honestly, he's in good shape for another 100,000. Belt's in good shape. The tires were iffy according to the deal. That's why he had them changed. Transfer case is up. All the chassis fluids are up. I'll give it a few shots of grease on all the U-joints since they have zerts. I'll give it a good grease job everywhere. And we'll get some spark plugs out here and throw them in there. After a while, it'll probably have to have a timing belt. I haven't looked at it to see if it's a belt or a chain. I don't remember that stuff, honestly. I see so many different vehicles, you know, that's a Toyota Tacoma, and there's a first gen Dodge, and there's a mid-teens Chevrolet, and there's a Chevy van, like a early 2000s Chevy van, and Ford Mustang, old Buick Regal, a 68 Jeepster, everything here. So I have a hard time remembering things. I think, no, it's a 4-liter Toyota. I don't know if I've been into one. I did the 3.4. 3.4 does have a belt. So I'll just look and see if there's a timing belt that needs to be serviced, but that's it. You know, cert belt was in good shape. There's no coolant leaks. I'll check the lights all around, and then he'll be ready to go. Okay, on the brake linings, it has it listed up there that the front linings were at 5 millimeters. See if you can see in here. It's difficult to get light where you can see it and I can see it too. There we go. That lining there is about 7 or 8 millimeters. Feeling along. The inside pad is about the same as the outside pad. So, yeah. I got the rear wheel off. Now on the inspection ticket, it did not say what they were measured at. It just said drum. I assume they're talking about the fact that it's drum meant that they didn't check them. And there is no crack in the rust between the drum and the axle. So they haven't been off. Now since the front brakes are up pretty good and the brake fluid's down just a little bit, that tells me that the brake fluid had to go somewhere. Either there's a leak or the linings are low. So it's best for me to pop off his drum and see where it's at. Okay, our linings are looking pretty good back here. They're normally a little thinner to start with, so we're at what? 4 millimeter, something like that. They're in good shape. And I checked underneath the cups here. It's dry. So we don't have a leak. The linings are good. I'll put it back together and put it down. We'll do the spark plugs, and that'll probably be it for this. I've already greased the U-joints. That's the only grease certs on the truck. Ball joints, tie rod ends, they're all sealed. So put it down. We'll do a test drive of it, see how everything feels. But I don't think this truck's gonna need anything else. Test drive went well. Truck runs good. We did put a bottle of injector cleaner in the tank just for a precautionary. Customer came and picked it up. Spent way less than he was told. And then when I talked to him, he said they were really contradictory of what was on the sheet and what they tried to sell him when he was talking to him. So it leaves a bad taste in our mouth. hear that. I understand if you're running a business, you need to sell, but really, don't sell something it doesn't need. Need. Not a, that'd be nice. You just got to tell people that this isn't a requirement, but it would be a good idea to do this or something like that. But there are things that I have literally never done. That's my own personal experience, yes, but I have literally never done a brake fluid exchange. I can see the reason why, if it's contaminated, but this is a sealed system. Brake fluid looks good. So the customer's already been here, picked it up, and they're very happy with the work. I talked to them a little bit about it, so we've got this has been a good customer for quite some time, and it's going to continue. Like, comment, subscribe, hit your little bell notification, share it all around. We'll talk to you later.